Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the big story. So, Jamaica regained the lead in the Group B of the CONCACAF World Cup qualification by defeating Bermuda 4-0 at the National Stadium in Kingston last evening. The Jamaican team dominated the match, scoring 3 goals in an 11-minute period in the first half. Bermuda's Dante Leverock scored an own goal, while Bobby Reed and Shamar Nicholson added to Jamaica's tally. And then Deshaun Richards sealed the win with a goal in the 76th minute. And it is a victory that we're still savoring and that we are, in fact, still celebrating. Joining me at this time, my good friend, senior sports journalist, senior sports analyst, Leighton Levy, to walk us through that match and to look at the future going forward for the Reggae Boyz. Leighton, good morning. How are you feeling this morning after?
Good morning to your listeners as well.
Thank you. How are you feeling this morning after that victory last night?
I'm feeling good. A little disappointed because had we done better against Curacao a few days ago, we would have qualified for the World Cup last night.
Mm-hmm.
But you take it as it comes. But it was perhaps the most dominant performance from this team in the final round that we've seen so far from Jamaica. So it was very encouraging, the performance, because if we can play like this when we go to Trinidad in November, and of course when we host Curacao just a few days after that, in the November window, we should qualify for the World Cup. But as we've seen, football is a very unpredictable sport, and anything can happen. But on the basis of what we saw last night, if Jamaica can replicate a performance, anything like this for the next 2 matches in the next window,
mm-hmm.
we should be in the World Cup for 2026.
Whisper got called in because Gray was injured. Outside of that, what other tactical decisions would you say the coach, Steve McLaren, made that contributed to this convincing victory?
I think it was more about personnel as opposed to being tactical per se. I thought sticks in the Curacao game where we couldn't get the ball to Stefas out on the flanks, we couldn't get the ball to Cadamartere up front. And we didn't do very well from our midfield, primarily because of the absence of Casey Palmer, who we saw came in last night and dictated the tempo and dictated the pace of the game last night. And of course, Isaac Hayden, who was also out because of suspension. Those two returning to the midfield gave Jamaica the kind of control that it lacked against Curacao. Both players missed the Curacao game because of suspension. That picked up a few yellow cards prior to. So both of them missed that game, and I think we saw how impactful their absence was against Curacao.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're back in the squad, we saw Jamaica regaining control of the game in terms of the ability to control the game, to find the wingers, to find the forwards more frequently. Because if you look at it last night as well, Kyle Dixon should have probably scored twice or 3 times in that game, hitting the crossbar once off a deflection of the goalkeeper. And Stefas also got opportunities to score. Things that we didn't see in the last match against Curacao, primarily because of the absence of Palmer and Isaac Hayden. I believe that John Russell, Isaac Hayden, and Casey Palmer is the best midfield setup we have.
Mm-hmm.
And without them, the Jamaica team struggles to find opportunities for the forward players because the midfield is absent. So it's an issue because I think if any of those players goes missing, then Jamaica struggles.
Mm-hmm.
What I've found certainly is that when those 3 play together in our midfield, Jamaica does play a lot better than they do previously. Bobby Reed does not bring the consistency that we would like to see in midfield. None of the other midfield players that we have actually have been able to be as consistent as that triumvirate of Casey Palmer and, of course, Russell and Isaac Hayden, who we saw last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a significant difference between that game and the one before in Curacao.
What do you have to say, Leighton, in terms of the way the coach used substitutes, and what indication does it give in terms of the strength of the team itself?
On paper, Jamaica is the strongest team in this group. But one of the things I find, and it's something that I'm wondering whether or not he's overplaying it, is by now, Jamaica should have had a settled squad. Players that are familiar with each other, players who understand each other's idiosyncrasies on the field, where they like to get the ball, how to find them on the field. And I think that Coach McLaren still tinkering with the lineup, I think impacts the ability of this team to gel properly. We saw him bring in Frey in the last match against Curacao. I think there are better options to bring in. This was Frey's match against Curacao was Frey's first match. He looked a lot better last time, but primarily because the game was already won. He wasn't under any pressure. Let me just use this opportunity to bring something to the attention of the listeners as well. Jamaica played well last night, yes, but they played well because they weren't pressed efficiently and effectively by Bermuda. When you saw what happened, for example, against Curacao, where they pressed us all over the field, we were unable to maintain possession. We were unable to make even the simplest of passes, and we lost possession of the wrong parts of the field, which eventually yielded 2 goals for Curacao. I don't think we're going to see that against Trinidad. I don't think that we're going to see that against Curacao when they play here in Jamaica. So we're going to have to find a way to play well under pressure, because Bermuda backed off last night and gave Jamaica a lot of space to play. And even the best of teams, or the worst of teams, when you give them space to play, they will play well. But when you press high and you press them from the forward line into the midfield areas, if we're not able to effectively maintain possession, we're going to struggle against Trinidad and Curacao. So let's hope that last night would have given the team some kind of encouragement of what is possible when they play well, when they're able to make the simple passes, 5-yard passes in midfield, to move defenses around and find spaces to move the ball forward. I think, what we saw last night was what was possible, but now they have to do it when teams are pressing them high. So, that's something that they're going to have to work on. But to answer your question, I think McLaren still is trying to tinker too much when the team should already be settled in terms of the players that are in that final setup, that final 23 players who will be starting games, who will be finishing games. Because this is not the time now to be bringing in new players, unless there's an extraordinary circumstance where there are injuries or circumstances that are beyond our control. The team should already be settled, and I think he's spending too much time tinkering with new players. He should leave the team as it is. The squad is set. Let them play. Now is not the time. Once the qualification process is over, yes, we're playing friendlies for the World Cup, preparing for the World Cup. Then, bring in new players, see if there are better options to be bringing in. But now is not the time for that. And I think he tinkers with the team too much. I think there's a perception that I think he overthinks things a lot, especially in this final phase of qualification. I don't think it helps the team any at all. This experimentation, now is not the time for experimentation. Now is the time to play football with the squad that you have, because the players are familiar with each other. Yes, the Mara Gray was out, and of course, Dejan is a good option to bring in. Obviously, his work at Chelsea has made him a much better player than he was when he was at Kingston College. And I thought bringing in him was a great move. But beyond that, I don't think there was need to bring in anybody else right now for this qualification period, this final phase of qualification. Yeah. And I think it showed up against Curacao. Now that the team is back to a level where they're winning again, the confidence should be high based on what we saw last night. Leave the squad as it is. Play the players that have been established themselves within that squad. And I think we'll have a better outcome against Trinidad and against Curacao next time we play both of them.
All right. Coach McLaren, I hope you're listening to that. Solid advice coming from Leighton this morning. While we're at it, what's the latest that you have on Leon Bailey? And is he likely to be able to play in any of the other matches that we have in this round?
Word is that he's recovered from the injury that kept him out from playing for Roma so far this season. Whether or not he'll be brought back into the squad, personally, I don't think we need him back in the squad right now. Leon Bailey, I know a lot of people might pull their hair out when I say this, but Leon Bailey rarely ever plays well for Jamaica. I don't know if probably he tries too hard to impress the local crowd or whatever it is, but I think you can probably count on one hand the number of good games he's had playing for Jamaica. I would keep Dojan Richards in the squad as it is. I would keep Kyle Dixon. In fact, I would start Kyle Dixon. Last night we saw the evidence that starting him makes a difference. Cadamartieri is a good player. I think we should keep him in the squad. So I think we could probably leave Leon Bailey out for the time being, maybe bring him back in after qualification is complete and is successful. Because especially now when he's coming off of injury, he's not going to be match fit. He's not going to be match sharp. So bringing him in right now, I think potentially ruins the seamlessness in which the team is on the well, based on what we saw last night. And it potentially could disrupt the flow of the team, given that he hasn't played for the team for such a long time. So, he can obviously come back into the team once the team qualifies for the World Cup. But right now, I would keep the squad as it is and play the next two matches. Unless there's an injury that is unavoidable, I think this is the squad you keep for the next two matches and to assure qualification for the World Cup.
So now we're leading the group with 1 point. We're on 9 points to Curacao on 8. What is it looking like going forward? And what are your expectations?
Well, look, going into Trinidad to play against Trinidad is going to be tough. Trinidad is always difficult to beat at home, especially the rivalry between the two countries. Trinidad will want to ensure that Jamaica does not have an easy road to qualification. That match is going to be extremely difficult. When we played them here in Jamaica, they scored 3 times, but all 3 goals were offside. We beat them 2-0 here. That should be a warning for us going into Trinidad to play against Trinidad. So that game is going to be tough. If we need to, what it basically boils down to, we need to win both games to ensure qualification. It's a must. Even though we're leading the group, both games are must wins for us, because if we draw against Trinidad, for example, that puts us on 10 points. Bermuda, who has been the whipping boys of this phase of the competition, they will most likely lose to Curacao, right? Which means that Curacao then goes up to 12 points. If they 11 points, and then go into the final matches with Jamaica needing to beat Curacao to win. If we beat Trinidad, we maintain that lead, and of course the pressure is on Curacao when they come to Jamaica to play, because then it's a must-win for them. Mm-hmm. But a draw will be sufficient for Jamaica to qualify. So what it boils down to is that it is in Jamaica's best interest to win both remaining games in the November window. I don't think Jamaica should be relying on leaving it up to anybody else to allow us to qualify. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Win both games and we're in. Yeah. If we draw or lose any of those games, then it is going to depend on other people and what the other teams do, whether we qualify or not.
We don't want that.
Win both and we're in. Yeah. And I think that should be the focus for the team and the management right now. Yeah. Focus on winning those games, and we'll win those games, and everything is all good.
Most definitely. Before you go, Leighton, I just wanted to get a quick comment from you on the decision by Alana Reid and her management to come back to Jamaica to train. How do you view that decision?
Well, look, based on what my understanding is, Alana has struggled since she's been abroad. She was at Star Athletics first, and then she went on to Hurdles and Mechanics, and in both instances, she has not settled. The reality is that for some athletes, going into a foreign country away from the people who are your support system can be a struggle for a lot of athletes. So coming back home, it's about finding the right fit for her. I don't know if someone like a Shaniki Osborne would be a good fit for her, or Glenn Mills or Elite Performance. But it's not a bad move, because based on what I've been told, she's been struggling since she's been abroad. And we've seen that in terms of her performance. She hasn't made any forward progress since she's been abroad for the last 2 years. So that's a good move. That said, though, there is this perception among a lot of Jamaicans that all our athletes would train here. That's not the case. And that shouldn't be the case, because the clubs here have there is not, it's not unlimited resources. And like, for example, MVP has a ton of athletes already. Glenn Mills is very specific about the number of athletes he has in his camp. So too Shaniki Osborne. And of course, the performance is similar as well. So for those athletes who find an opportunity, they can manage being away from home, training with some of the best coaches in the world. Like, for example, Sabrina Dockery is going to be training with Lance Brumman. We've seen what he's done with Sean Miller-Weibo. We've seen what he's done with Veronica Campbell-Brown, Noah Lyles, Jeremy Richards. He has a proven track record, Tyson Gay. So if Sabrina Dockery can settle into Claremont, Florida, and do well there, I think he will do well for her. But for Alana Reid coming back home, that's probably the best option for her. Her mom is here, her family is here, the main part of her support system is here. I don't think it hurts for her to come back home. The issue is finding the right coach locally for her to work with. That will then see her progress. All
right. Leighton, I thank you, as always, for dipping into your reservoir of knowledge and sharing so much with us this morning. By the way, just remind us of your YouTube channel for those who want to follow you and support you online.
It's called Mr. Analyst, Mr. Mr. Analyst, sorry. Let me start again. Mr. as in Mr. Analyst, a.k.a. Leighton Levy. That's the best way to find it.
All right. Thank you for that, Leighton. We thank you for your time and for your thoughts. Have a great day. Appreciate it as always.